Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Courtside with Beilinson Tennis. As always, here with my co-host and Hall of Famer, Steve Flink. I know it's been a few weeks for the listeners. We had a really good speaker lined up, a guest to join us. We're still going to have that person. Just life gets in the way, as we always say here. So we had to reschedule it a little bit. But that's the delay. So sorry we haven't been going on for, consecutive weeks now, but we're back. We're here a couple days before Wimbledon first ball. Steve, you ready to roll? You got the white polo on, Steve. You're ready.
I'm ready to go. Yeah, absolutely. We've got the draws been made yesterday, and another Wimbledon is upon us.
Yeah, a couple things before we I'll throw out some topics for you to, expand your thoughts about. But couple results earlier today, and we're in the States, it's Saturday late afternoon. We're recording this. Taylor Fritz, I think he's won Eastbourne now four times. Had a good win today. He has a very tough first round opponent at Wimbledon, and Pericard is. I mean, you guys have seen this guy play. Expect tiebreakers when they play. Taylor will be good for his confidence. He's won like two of the last three tournaments, I guess he's played, Steve. So he's have confidence, but by no means is he going to be able to just kind of work his way slowly into Wimbledon here.
No, but great preparation. Great preparation. As you say, it's two titles. He won in Stuttgart where he beat Zverev, and now today where he beat Brooksby in the final. And in between, he had an early loss at Queens, which is not going to bother him in the least because actually he was almost better off because if he was going to play three straight weeks would have been too much with all those extra matches. So he's very very well prepared. I agree with you. It's a scary. Perry is a nightmare in some ways because he serves so big, and you feel like the tie breaks are inevitable. On the other hand, Taylor, with this confidence, and he's got to feel like over a best of five, he's got an advantage, not just in fitness, but to make this guy find a way to win three sets against him, serve that well, and then hope he can steal the occasional break here and there. Maybe he can break them once or twice. And meantime, he also knows that Pericard's going to have a very difficult time breaking his serve, and Taylor is one of the better servers in the game himself. So I think that as daunting as it is, an assignment that he can handle.
And the next round, the winner of that match could potentially play Diallo from Canada, who's also good. So there's
Another
no easy matches for Taylor if he gets through the first one.
No, and it'd be another really tall guy in Diallo too. No, that's not easy. But again, all this grass court preparation. Okay, he hasn't played servers quite like that. On the other hand, I think he's prepared for just about anything right now. And then if he can make his way through those early round skirmishes, then he might eventually end up in the seedings tell us, although we don't know that Zverev will get there. But that would be a quarterfinal. At least it is on paper. And he's beaten Zverev five times in a row. Meantime,
In big matches, Steve.
but round of 16 for Fritz could well be Medvedev. Again, I would like his chances on grass against Medvedev, despite Daniel reaching a final, last week. So I feel, and he lost to Bublik. So I got a pretty good feeling that Taylor ends up in the semifinals. That's what I'm getting at here. I mean, it's not going to be easy. I like his chances to get there. However, I will say this. I don't think anybody on that half, David, is beating Carlos Alcaraz as he goes for his third title in a row. That's not to diminish anybody else around. And Carlos would potentially play a FAA in the third round and maybe Rublev in the round of 16 and perhaps Holger Rune in the quarters. But I just don't see how, with his confidence soaring and coming off the French and winning Queens and the big winning streak, having won Rome before Paris, he's on such a tear and he's so determined to get a third crown in a row. I think the only time he potentially could lose is to Sinner or Djokovic in the final. And that's it. Or if somehow Draper got through on the other half as well. But I don't think anybody else is beating Carlos Alcaraz at this Wimbledon.
So I think Team Fritz would probably take semis for sure, and then they'll see how it goes from there. I think they would sell out today for that for sure. All right, on the women's side, another good result that happened today. Jess Pegula beat Iga Swiatek 6-4, 7-5. That's a good win for Jess. And looking at the draw on its face for Jess, it's not quite as daunting as it is for Taylor. Just seems to have a little bit more of a cushion to say. Again, you don't want to take anyone for granted, especially in a slam. But again, on its face, it doesn't look to be as daunting as Taylor's does, and yet,
No, and you know what, David? I agree with you. And Jess is seeded third, and
yep.
so again, the seedings would suggest that she'd play Andreeva in the quarterfinals, the number 7 seed. But Andreeva's been in a slump lately, so I'm not so sure she's getting to that quarterfinal. So this is a nice boost for Jess because Swiatek was so pleased herself to be back in a final for the first time since Roland Garros a year ago. That was a big step, trying to win her first grass court title, but Jess beats her 4-5, two well played sets, one break in each set. She never lost her serve. And I think it's a really nice lift for Pegula heading into Wimbledon to make her strongest showing yet at the All England Club. I think her timing is impeccable.
Flip back to the men's side, and I'm gonna throw out some topics, some broader topics for you to talk about. But one match that stood out to me, and I don't know if it stood out to you, Steve, but Ben Shelton with his game, he can be very dangerous on grass. He plays Alex Bolt from Australia. Bolt can play on this surface, Steve. That's a match that Ben cannot take lightly one bit.
No, and he hasn't been playing. He hasn't gotten the matches in that he would have liked heading into Wimbledon, which does not help. Looked great at the French when he lost to Carlos. No, that'll be a tough go. It'll be tough from the beginning. I mean, I would expect that match to be at least 4 sets either way, and potentially 5. But if he can manage to survive it, he might eventually play Humbert in the round in the what would that be? That would be a 16, I suppose. Yeah, yeah. Humbert is the number 16 seed and Shelton's 10, but then eventually, there's just so many good guys in that section. Musetti, Nakashima, excuse me.
Yep.
And then up above, obviously, we've got the potential of 4th round battle between Tommy Paul and Sinner.
He can't get out of Sinner's
No,
way. He
no,
gets stuck with Sinner at the U.S. Open, at the French Open. He can't get out of Sinner's draw there.
yeah, but before leaving Ben, David, I just would say, I mean, he can play his way into this tournament. You have to believe somebody with that kind of a serve on grass, who's now finally established himself as a top 10 player, coming in as the number 10 seed, that he's ready to do something of note. Win the tournament, no, but I think he can make an impression. And so can Musetti, by the way, the number 7 seed. He was in the semis last year. People shouldn't regard him as strictly a clay court player or a hard court player. He's now doing well on all the surfaces. He lost to Novak in the semis last year and beat Fritz in the quarters. So I'm not gonna say he's not living up to his seeding. And if he does, he'd play Sinner in the quarters. So do I think he beats Sinner? No, but I think it could be a competitive match. So that's an interesting section of the draw when you've got the likes of, that quarter featuring the likes of Tommy Paul and Shelton and Musetti and Nakashima, who's seeded 29, who's quite good on the grass. So there's a lot of talent in that Sinner quarter, if we could call it that.
Man, the inners, the Americans would take a Tommy Paul Ben Shelton quarter, but that means Sinner lost. So I don't know. That's going to be tough sledding there, but
yeah. No, listen. I think Tommy. My biggest worry. I mean, I think actually he could test Sinner as we saw in Rome, but I worry about that abdominal issue that he's got, and he played his way through that issue did a nice job in Paris, but then he kind of laid off for a while, came back, and he had a recent loss, I guess, to Evans. That was a surprising loss on the grass. And you have to wonder, is he up to the task of playing more long, tough physical matches on grass coming off the French if he's not fully healed? If he is, physically he's all right. I could see a very good match with Sinner, not a victory, but a hard-fought 4 or 5 setter, because Tommy can compete with anyone. I just think you have to like Sinner's chances.
And I know we didn't talk about every American in the draw, but I think according to you, and we heard you said potentially the semis. Taylor Fritz is probably your best prospect to go the furthest in this event, right?
Yeah, when I look at the draw, and that's not diminishing the challenges that he's got. It's, as we just alluded to, there's some potential pitfalls, but I think given that he's won 2 two titles coming in out of the three tournaments he played. I think he's got to be feeling very good about himself and very comfortable on the grass. So yeah, I would say going in, he does have the best chance to make a semi. That would be Taylor.
All right, flip over to the women's side for a bit. Arina Sabalenka and Coco Gauff. There was a lot to be made after Sabalenka's comments after that French Open final. She did give almost like it felt like a half-hearted apology after that, but then it seemed there's been a little bit more, whether that came from her own volition to do it or from people around her, surrounding her, telling her to do a little bit more and get out there and, maybe say a few more apologetic type statements. They seem to be fine. They were practicing on the court. I don't know how active you are with TikTok, Steve, but they were filming a TikTok together, Coco and Arina Sabalenka. So,
yeah, I didn't see the TikTok, but I did see the clip.
Yep.
I saw photos as well.
Yeah.
And it strikes me as very good news all around. Number one, that Sabalenka is trying to put that behind her and try to make amends for it, and that Coco is holding no grudges. She didn't even have a grudge at the time that it happened. So Coco has made Sabalenka's life a lot easier. By just handling it with complete grace and dignity. And
Steve, I'm so glad you said that. She is so mature beyond her years, everything. And I'm not just talking about this issue, Coco. I'm talking whenever you hear her speak, she is so mature. She says the right thing. She uses her platform in a reasonable manner, like a smart manner. I'm trying to find the word. She's so mature beyond her years, and today in the press conference, they asked her, like, why didn't you react more negatively? And she said, I don't fuel this world with hate, Steve. She goes, I'm not the one who fuels this world with hate. And this is a 21-year-old kid, Steve. She's still a kid. And she's just so mature.
I think what she was able to do was to put herself in Sabalenka's shoes and say, you know what? I would have been so despondent if I had lost this match. I know how she feels. And I think she was able to sort out too that over time that I'm not aware, and I don't think there've been any other issues between them. So she looked at it as Sabalenka having what they refer to as a bad hair day. And I think it's terrific because I think now that is going to be the end of it. And I think they both will move on, and neither one, and Sabalenka doesn't have to be haunted by it any longer. And hopefully Sabalenka will never allow anything like this to happen again. She will realize that people will not be forgiving if there's a repeat offense.
Well, we mentioned Taylor's tough draw. Coco as the 2 seed, she does not have an easy draw either, Steve. She opens up with Yastremska. Vika Azarenka's in there. Kennan's in there. Remember, Kennan just a few years ago beat her in the first round at Wimbledon.
Right.
Rybakina's in there.
And David, the Kennan match would be a third rounder because she's only seeded in the high 20s, 28, I guess. She's the number 28 seed. So that'd be a third round contest for Coco if she can get by Yastremska in the second round. No, it's
Azarenka, Yastremska, Azarenka, and Kennan maybe just to get past the third round.
Yeah, right. No, it's a lot of hard work just to make that 16 against Kasatkina, the number.
And then a potential quarter against Rybakina.
Yeah, or Iga. We'll see who gets through that section. But yeah, it's a very tough path. And then we'll see. Then I guess there would be the potential for a dream U.S. semifinal between the former doubles partners Pegula and Coco.
You wanted that at the U.S. Open a couple of years ago. Didn't we talk about that last year, 2 years ago? I can't remember.
Yeah, I was hoping for it. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Sabalenka, she hasn't won a slam yet, but my gosh, how close was she, right? She's lost in 2 finals, Australia to Madison Keys, and then the most recent one, the final to Coco and Roland Garros. She hasn't won Wimbledon yet, Steve. Do you think she feels any pressure to, hey, let's win a slam this year, one, and hey, I've never even got to a final. I think she's semied as her best result at Wimby.
Yeah, she's
Wimbledon.
She's had to miss it a few times. She couldn't play it, I guess, in 22 because of the whole Russian issue. And I think there's some extenuating circumstances for her not winning it yet. On the other hand, given what you just alluded to, losing heartbreaking 3-set finals at the Australian Open to Keys, and then the match that we just referred to, Coco at Roland Garros, both of them really hard fought 3-set matches. It's going to make her doubly determined to win Wimbledon. She was so impressive in winning the U.S. Open last year, and so she's consistently. I mean, that's 3 straight finals and 1 win. But yes, I think she'll be very eager, and I just think also the grass suits her well, David. With her serve and her big hitting game, she's probably more comfortable on the grass than just about any of the other top players. And so maybe it will all come together for her this time. I wouldn't make her an overwhelming favorite, but I would make her a slight favorite to win this title over the field.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. All right. Carlos Alcaraz, he's trying to do the Roland Garros Wimbledon sweep for the second year in a row now, Steve. Some people use like how their personalities or the team around them or just the aura around these players, you feel like pressure just builds and builds and builds and stuff like this. I don't feel like that's the case at all with Carlos and his team. Like he looks good. He looks like he's having fun. You see him on the practice court. You saw him hitting with Emma Raducanu the other day. He's smiling aplenty. I don't feel like it's not like he feels this extra weight on his shoulders trying to do this Roland Garros Wimbledon sweep for the second year in a row.
No, and I think he's also pretty grateful that he was able to get across the finish line at Roland Garros. He's relieved and exhilarated at the same time. He knows that match could have gone the other way. And so he feels now, I don't think he's going to get obsessed with the idea that he's going for 3 in a row, as opposed to isolating this tournament and saying, I'd love to win it again. I think I can win it again. I'm gonna try hard. So yeah, at this point, we've seen him, David. There have been some stages, some moments where he's looked unhappy and a little bit, little uptight. He's human like everybody. And
late last year was a perfect
late
example.
last year, and he doesn't tend to enjoy that home stretch of the year. The post-Open period has never been his favorite, and we've yet to see him at his best in Australia either.
Yeah.
So there have been moments, but boy, this time of the year, he loves it. And I feel like the other point is, as great as he is on clay, as remarkable as he is on hard courts, maybe grass is his very best.
Yeah.
You could argue it is. We don't see that much grass court tennis. We only see him play the 2 tournaments a year, basically. It's Queens and Wimbledon. But boy, I mean, here he is going for 3 in a row, and it seems to me that you could argue that it's his best court.
And you got and I know you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but like Becker, how many Wimbledon titles does he have? Only 3, right?
Yeah.
Edberg,
Yeah, two.
So I mean, Carlos, if he wins this, and again, there's no guarantee, right? But he's going to be how old is he? 22 right
22.
Now?
That's the amazing thing.
He'll
But
have
of
3
course,
Wimbledon titles.
but let's face it, his age is just so deceptive because he got on the board 3 years ago at the U.S. Open.
Yeah, but Becker won his first Wimbledon at 17, right?
It's true. But Boris was a more complicated character, and you could see very early on, even though Boris defended, he won it in 85 at 17, youngest ever, did defend in 86. And at that point, I think we all thought it was almost inevitably he'd win 5 or more.
Right.
And then he only got 1 more in 89. But we saw Boris there were times when he was really volatile and miserable and very up and down, and you knew it. And Carlos is just a different kind of character. So the fact that he's doing this so young tells me, I know Boris a lot younger when he first got on the board, but I'm thinking that Carlos, this is just going to become a steady diet for him. Then the key for him is definitely going to be avoiding. I'm not worried about him handling the emotional issues and proving that he's got the mental toughness to win these titles. It's all about his body holding up. And through this part of the season, he's looked physically very healthy. He did have that injury during the clay court season that kept him out briefly, but that was wise that he did stay out for a while and that he came into Paris fresh. And now, he looks physically at his very best.
He does. All right, let's talk Novak for a minute. He's not in the Alcaraz. He's not in the Alcaraz half. He's in the center half. But there could be the quarterfinal with him and Draper. There's dangerous American player Alex Mickelson, who we know can play well on grass. He looms, and I don't think it would be a 3rd round match, I believe, with Novak. You're looking at Novak making a run here, and I mean, if he can somehow win this, he's made the finals the last 2 years. He's lost to Carlos, right? If he can somehow win this tournament, do you think he says, you know what, that's it? Or you think, regardless of how he does here, whether he wins it or he doesn't, he's still going to play the U.S. clay court, the U.S. hard court swing this summer and finish at the Open?
Yeah, I can't see him not doing that. Regardless, I could be wrong because nobody knows how it would hit him if he did
Because he
win
still
one.
says 2028 Olympics, and that's still a long time away.
Yeah, I mean it's an incredible. It's commendable that he wants to do that, but even he's had to admit that he can't really know how he's going to feel at any time. That he likes to keep that on the back burner, thinking about that and thinking about going back. But no, I think he would play my guess is he would come to the Open even if he won Wimbledon. But it isn't even just that he was in these last bunch. You got to go back all the way to 2018 when he won there and won again in 19. There was no tournament in 20. He won it in 21 and 22. So he'd won four in a row and now two finals.
Yeah,
So he's been all together
incredible.
six finals in a row. And
That's incredible.
last year he did it with having just had that knee surgery. So following the French Open. So he said himself, this is the one that he feels like he can play his best.
That's well said that you put that in perspective. You know, we missed the one in 2020, but six finals in a row, and he's won a bunch of those finals. That's an
Yeah.
incredible run, Steve.
Oh, you know, it is. It is. And seven titles altogether. And if he were to win it, it wouldn't only be just number 25 in the major title department, but he'd tie Roger for eight singles titles at Wimbledon, which I know he would love to do. And so there's a lot riding on it. Now, of course, you described the early draw, and he opens against Muller, the Frenchman. And yeah, potentially Mickelson, who's seeded 30, would be the third round, and perhaps De Minaur in the round of 16. And then there's a very enticing potential quarter with Jack Draper
With
for Novak.
Draper, yeah.
But Draper has to deal with Bublik in the third round. Draper
Yes.
has no easy draw to get there. What I would say is whether it's Draper or Bublik, I do have Novak going out to the semis. I think it would take an extraordinary performance for him to beat Sinner. I would favor Sinner for sure in that semifinal. But I see Novak getting there and also making an even. I mean, it was three high quality sets when he lost to Sinner in Roland Garros.
Let me ask you this: would Novak rather play Sinner on grass in the semis than Roland Garros in the semis? Yes, right?
Yes, I think so.
I agree.
But the flip side of that coin is he's had so much trouble in these last bunch of matches breaking Sinner's serve. He has more trouble breaking Sinner than any other player by far. He's dealt with Carlos's serve a great deal more effectively than he has with Sinner. So that would be my concern. Can he find a way to? I mean, it's hard to explain given what an incredible returner he is and the all-time best in that department. But for whatever the reasons, Sinner's serve has kind of confounded him a bit. He managed to break him once in Paris, but it's just been a tall order. So that to me is going to be the key. Now, even as recently as 2 years ago when he beat Sinner it's interesting. He beat Sinner from 2 sets down in 22 on his way to the title. Then he beat him in the semis and straight in 23. So through that period there, he was getting his share of breaks, and right to the end of 23 he was. But then it's changed since that 24 Australian. So that's to me would be the biggest obstacle. Can he carve out a break here and there against Sinner and get into some tie breaks? I think he's going to be even harder to break than he was in Paris too, on the grass. So potentially we would have a couple of tie breaks in that match that could decide the outcome.
Yeah, that'll be
But Sinner will be hard to beat, assuming that he gets there. Now he's an interesting topic right now, David, that having just decided to part ways with his trainer and his physio, which seems like very strange timing. He was a bit cryptic in his comments about it because he just, no real reason, these things happen. And I'm not suggesting that he should come out and say anything negative about those guys, but it's a very significant decision to make on the eve of the biggest tournament in the game. You would have think that he would have tried to wait till post Wimbledon, do it over the summer maybe, and get used to some new people in those roles. So I'm curious to see how that plays out as well.
Yeah, That was an interesting recent development that he did, get rid of those couple people on his team. But he's already been pretty good at putting distractions aside, so we'll
Oh no!
see.
Oh, listen, and I'm not suggesting that I think it's going to suddenly have him up in arms and not, and we won't see the real Yannick Sinner. I'm just curious about what led to it and whether it has any effect. He's still going to have Cahill and his coaches in his corner, and they're going to be there raising his spirits every step of the way. And he seems to be saying too, David, that he's heard a lot of comments. I guess a lot of other players and people of the game have been kind of bolstering his spirits by talking about what an what an extraordinary occasion that Roland Garros final was. And I think he maybe is starting to see that in a different light and realizing, okay, it was a heartbreaking loss, but I was a big part of history there, and I still played great, great tennis. And maybe he can look at it a bit more the way McEnroe did after losing to Borg in the 1980 final at Wimbledon, where people kept coming up to him. And I remember him commenting many years later that it was almost as if he'd won the match. People were so nice about the match. And so you start to see it in an altogether different way.
So I think more people would be confident at the start of Roland Garros to say, you know what, it's probably going to be Carlos and Sinner in the final. I don't think people would be as quite as confident saying that at the start of Wimbledon, it's going to be a Carlos versus Sinner final. Very well could be. They're the top two seeds, but I think there may be a few more people that can make dangerous inroads on the grass than maybe in the clay.
It's true, but Alcaraz has just been so good there the last couple of years, and his draw looks so good. Sinner's draw looks to me, on paper at least, pretty darn good. So I still say, yeah, the odds are not as great necessarily, but there's still a very, very good chance. I mean, if I had to call the final right now, that would be it. And I would pick Alcaraz to beat Sinner again in the finals. But you're right. Maybe it's not quite as the odds are not quite as high as they were in Roland Garros, but close enough. Close enough, I'd say.
Well, I know you're going down there, as you usually do. You've gone there for so many years, which is incredible. I know you're going to be down there for the middle weekend through the end of the tournament. I'm going to be out of town, so I don't know if we're going to be able to do a mid-tournament recap. We'll see. We can try to make it work, but if not, we'll do something when you get back. I know you'll be there taking your notes and having your iPad on and following all the action. So safe travels to you. Have a wonderful time. I know you love going down there, and have the best time, Steve.
Thanks, David. Looking forward to it.